Welcome to 52 Weeks of Hope. This is where you get to hear how to feel happy, balanced, and worthwhile. How to make that lonely ache vanish and feel empowered, confident, and secure. I'm Lauren Abrams, and I get to help you feel that magic again since going through my own dark night of the soul by chatting with incredible leaders, healers, and elders who give us their message of hope after overcoming challenges of their own. Today, you're talking to the amazing executive producer of Project Runway, JJ Duncan. JJ lost her 11-year-old son, yet lives today in joy. Listen right now to find out how that is possible. JJ's the picture of resilience these days and actually has a resilience campaign going in memory of her recently passed 11-year-old son, Mason. JJ kept everyone in the loop, so to speak, with her incredible storytelling and heart-wrenching and sometimes even funny anecdotes of little Mason's sudden discovery of leukemia and the ensuing period of treatment and ultimate passing this past year. She's here today letting you know that you can get through anything and that community carries you through even when you may not be aware of just how much community you actually have. JJ's infectious spirit and openness make you so happy just to be in her presence, even a virtual one, even amidst the pain. She shows you how to get through limiting beliefs, emerging on the other side, telling you how you too can live in joy and even how you can live without anxiety. Welcome to 52 Weeks of Hope, JJ Duncan.
Aw, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm so glad we finally
get it's so what we need. So I appreciate it. I'm very honored to be here.
Thanks. I'm glad we're finally getting to do this. You've always said you're a storyteller. That's what you are. And I will agree. That is what you are. We were all laughing and listening to you tell your stories the other night. And I was like, that was a good lead in. And yeah, it had the good end. I've been repeating a lot of your stories, I have to say. But how do you want the story told about you for this period? How would you like that to be told? Like, here you are.
The story about me.
Yeah.
I think what I've really learned is the story about me isn't about me at all. So that's really interesting. You know? Yeah.
Good way to put it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that was a long time getting there because for a long time I thought it was all about me.
Yeah. That's when I met you.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. You've seen me come on quite a journey. You know, where I am right now in my life, as you mentioned, my son Mason passed away last fall. He was diagnosed 2 years ago with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. He battled for 8 months with, really barbaric treatments. I mean, it's crazy what they put these kids through. These treatments they put them through are still like 40-year-old treatments. It's really not. There needs to be research. That said, usually you hear childhood leukemia and it's like got a 95% cure rate. And you think, oh, it'll be fine. And I really thought it would be fine. He went into remission. He was in maintenance treatment for about 4 months, 5 months. And COVID hit and everybody went inside and it was all crazy. And we thought that was crazy. And then on June 1st last year, he wasn't feeling very well. And I took him in. We had to actually go to the ER because it was just protocol for where he was in his maintenance treatment. It wasn't because we felt like there was an emergency. And we found out he had relapsed with the cancer. And that kicked us into a high gear that lasted about another 6 months before he actually passed away on November 19th of 2020. So I have to say, Mason was a force. He was 11 years old when he passed. The thing I learned a lot. Community, for sure. That's something you talk about a lot on this podcast. And I think that that's such a key component of what we've learned. But I also learned that it is okay to risk delight, even in the midst of the worst pain. Mason was a funny boy. He was a funny guy. And he and I made jokes at the most, at the worst times, probably as a self-defense, not self-defense, but a defense mechanism to get through moments. But it helped keep us grounded. I think it helped keep, you know what I mean? We never let ourselves go too far down the path without laughing. And so when he passed, it was, losing your child, I can't ever begin to describe that. And I am forever altered. And you can tell the fact that I can even talk about it right now without I might cry at some point, but I've compartmentalized a lot of it to be able to tell this story. So, but I will say that I know that when he passed, a very big part of me just wanted to fold up. That was it. I was ready to check out. Here's my time card. Bye-bye. And because I thought, I don't know what else to do. it seemed like everything that I thought should happen didn't happen. And I really, really recognized how not in control of anything I am. And I'm somebody who likes to be in control. And so the idea of folding up and just going away was very enticing. And I swear it was Mason's voice in me, in my heart and in my head that said, Mama, don't you dare. You're too funny, and you've got too much life, and you've got too much energy, and you have to keep going for us. And so every single day now I wake up, and I wake up for Mason, and I wake up for my daughter, Madeline, who's still here. And I don't want to leave her with the example that one folds after terrible tragedy. I want to leave her with the example that we continue to embrace life with all the joy we possibly can, just like Mason did to the very end. I mean, the very end. You know, if I'm going to wrap up in a story where I would say I am right now at this point in my life, it's there. It's that I am a person who I make it a point to just live my life for joy. And I don't try to be a model for anybody else. I don't try to tell everybody how to do it. I don't try to do anything but be of service, make jokes, and take care of my body, watch what comes next.
When you talk about community, and I mention this a lot on the podcast because I just think it's so interesting, the parts of the world where people live the longest, the blue zones, and the healthiest, is the number one reason is because of community. Mm-hmm. And not just as a word, but as a true sense of community and all of its spirit and richness.
Yeah.
And the community that came together for you was just amazing. And it wasn't like, oh, I lived in this community all the time and everything else. I mean, when I met you, and you talk about being controlling, when I met you, you were getting ready to run the LA Marathon, and suddenly, oh, my hip. And you can't control that. Nope. You were going to run anyway. And do you want to talk about community and being controlling?
Yeah, 100%. You know, my whole life, I've tended to be a leader, and that's a compliment I've gotten my whole life, like on report cards and stuff when I was a kid, and whenever, you know, it was always like a plus, like, you know, she tends to be a leader. She tends to be someone who takes charge. And I was president of every club you put me in. I took over, and it has served me well in life. I think it helped me in my career. You know, now I run big shows, and that's a great thing. Where it did me a disservice was, I think I went into situations thinking I had to save the day. And therefore I sort of lived with this level of anxiety of like, what do I have to do? Now, I never let anybody see me sweat, which is why I was a good leader. But inside, I had this level of anxiety constantly that I had to somehow I was responsible for everyone's experience. And with cancer, I was no different. I took over. I was like, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. All the doctors knew me. The oncologist knew me. The whole hospital came to know me. I am a big personality. I came in, I said, I facilitated an environment that, again, it's a double-edged sword. It really worked in a lot of ways. Mason got a lot of attention. Mason got a lot of joy and focus from that because I made sure his world was controlled. I clearly could not control blood cells. I clearly could not control where the science is right now for the type of leukemia he had. And there were moments after moments where it became clear to me that I was not in control. And I didn't know what to do. And when I stopped long enough to just stop, when I looked around to my left and my right, I had an army of people surrounding me saying, we've got you, we'll hold you up. And where we live in our neighborhood, I mean, it's a little like area with like people going to we all have an elementary school and there's parents and you see the same parents and people wave, but I wouldn't say that we felt like we were part of a community before this happened. And then when Mason got sick, suddenly one family said, well, we've got this wood lemonade stand. Can we put up a lemonade stand? and sell lemonade. My daughter wants to sell lemonade and give money that she makes to Masons. There was a fund to help us because we lost, everything. I wasn't working and it was crazy. And we thought that was so sweet. Well, before we knew it, all the kids of the community came out and parents came out and we all started talking, and Mason was there in the midst of that. And he was this light, and everybody wanted to be there to be with him and to help show him that they were supporting him. And I didn't produce that. I got quiet and I sat and I watched all of this love happening. Little by little, I learned to let go and let that net hold us. Our community held us up financially. They held us up emotionally. They brought groceries to our house. They offered to take Madeline, my daughter, if we were constantly running back and forth to the hospital. There were emergencies. There were middle of the night trips. There were weeks and weeks we stayed at the hospital. Everybody pulled together. We had just an entire community who knew us by sight and would wave to us on the street. We would take Mason out for walks in his wheelchair when he wasn't in the hospital, and people would stop and come talk to us and ask what they could do. And sometimes just do it without even asking. Friends from high school, friends from people, it became this energy of a group that I can't even put into words. And all I had to do was nothing. And all I ended up doing was doing what I think I really do best, which is tell stories. And that wasn't a lot of work for me. It was actually a way for me to sort of just let go and sort of let go where I am. So we had a website where I would put up updates for what was going on. And I also sort of let people see into the day-to-day grind of being a parent with a child with cancer, including not being able to meditate, not being able to eat well, not being able to exercise, just the fear of what doctors were saying to us, just the parenting of it all. Mason wanting to spend, time on video games and I guess I should let him because he has cancer, right? You know what I mean? And these weird questions that you don't think about that are still like the day-to-day grind of being a family. And with that, everybody started to feel very connected, even more so. And I didn't have to produce things to happen. I just learned to let go. And little by little, my anxiety of needing to be in control, needing to be the smartest person in the room, needing to have all the answers, it left. When Mason passed, this community again came together in a way that I just can't even begin to tell you. Across the street from our house, they put up a sign that said "Shine Forever, Mason." And they had all gone in and gotten him, how you can buy a star that goes, I don't know, if you're not clearly not buying a star. I always like it. I don't know how many people own that star. I'm sure a lot, but I think of it as like one little square mile of a star that's billions of light years away. And that belongs to Mason. Mm-hmm. And they have a map. I'm pointing because it's across the street from where I'm sitting. There's a map of where his star is. It's the second star in the handle of the Big Dipper, second star to the right, and which has a connection to Neverland also from Peter Pan. It says "Shine Forever, Mason." And for weeks and weeks and weeks, the entire city brought candles and stuffed animals and flowers. And it looked like it was a huge memorial out in front of our house for a couple of months. And I think certainly everybody was touched by the fact that a child passed, and a little boy that everybody liked too. He was a very likable boy. And there's a lot of stories about him that showed his likability. And I have feelings about that as a mom, of course, but I also believe it was part of his plan to only be here for 11 years because he came in as an old soul and he taught a lot of people a lot of things. And the cool part is yes, that community came together to support us in the middle of grief. Yes, we had the meal train going and people bringing over casseroles and all that kind of stuff. It's partly why I gained so much weight because I just was emotionally eating. But the cool thing is I have had many, many, many conversations with many people since then that said they really were interested in keeping this community feeling going. We didn't want to drop it. Now that Mason had passed and we were through the worst of it, we find ourselves now making dates for cookouts and park play dates. And this morning we all went on a bike ride, this whole group. There were 22 children and their families. So it was about 40 people riding around our streets, like cars, everything. And I'm stopping traffic at red lights. we called it Mason's memory ride because it was his favorite little thing to trail. It was like 4 miles, like around the neighborhood here. And when we were done, everyone was like, we should do this again. Let's just not make this about just once in a while. Let's keep doing this. And so I've made friends with people who live on our blocks that I never before saw. It was like we all live our lives in this way of like, so my physical community, like my community where I live, my neighbors came together in a way that seems to be continuing. And we're making dates for dinner parties and for, I mean, even with COVID going, like we had Zooms, we went, we've done all of these things now with our neighbors and all of the kids at our school and the families at our school. And it's really incredible. It's really, really incredible. And I keep thinking, and that sign is still out there. We're going to leave it there until the 1 year anniversary of his passing. I keep thinking, Mason, you did this. You built this community, and that's huge. That's huge. He built this community, my little boy. And it's something now there's other people in the community going through stuff and we're going to be there for them. And that's what it is. It's not like we have to be the star of it. Mason doesn't have to be the star of it. We just came together for a reason. And now we realize this is actually really healing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it totally is. And there's so many people in the community I know that we're part of that we were all so shocked when he passed, and somebody called me, "You're the mama bear." I'm like, no, we're all on equal footing here, but somebody called me that. And I go, we just carry her through and we love each other. That's what we do.
That's right. Well, you guys were the ones that first, like when he was first diagnosed, I mean, like at the hospital, suddenly like this particular group of ours started showing up and like Tess brought donuts for the nurses and like Amanda and Katie came and like sat with Mason and like we all talked with dog therapists and like it was so like, I mean, the love, that's the thing. As soon as something like awful happens, if you surround yourself with the kind of people who are authentic and on the path, what you'll find is the love that pours through. There is love. There is so much love. And that love becomes so tangible in a way that I just can't put into words.
And it's all there. It's available for anyone. It's all here. Yeah. And it's like, that's why I send love. When I'm mad at someone, I send them love.
That's right.
I just send love.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
It's not original.
No, but it works. It works. It's been there for centuries and it works. I mean, even, you don't even have to feel it. Even if you're just like, I get it. Even if you have like a resentment and you're just like, okay, I send love out to you know what I mean? It's like, even that will make you feel better. And there's something about that energy and that force that it's so bigger than we know, it's so much bigger than we know. And, in Mason's final moments, Stacy and I, my wife and I, we held him and we were together as a family. And I cannot describe to you the amount of love in that room, and I know he felt that. And as he left his body, he became nothing but love. And it was, if you've ever been with someone when they've passed, I'm sure it's not that way for every situation. I think some people leave this world afraid, but Mason was ready. And Mason knew what he was doing at that point because we had talked about it quite a bit. And it was just, there was nothing but love left. Love. And it was really quite profound.
I've talked to you a little bit about that you and Stacy that moment is always something. So somebody who's having a hard time now, I mean, they'll be like, well, I didn't go through that. But you can never minimize somebody else's hard time because when we're in it, I had somebody who used to tell me, well, go to Children's Hospital and look at the sick kids. And I was like, well, what does that have to do with what I'm going through right now? Like, I'm still hurting. Yeah. And anyway, what would you tell somebody who's just like sluggish and going, I feel yucky. I feel ugly. I don't want to go. I don't feel like even doing what I have to do, whatever it is. Just go to work. I don't feel like it. What would you tell somebody like that?
I think I would tell someone like that to not try, it's funny because that advice of go to Children's Hospital is funny because I on some level, I'm like, that sounds like it would be good advice, but I think it's shooting past the goal. I mean, I think it's actually like too big. What
I was so young when I was given that advice. I think that now.
No, I know.
Like half my
right.
life
And
ago.
It's so like, yeah, it's so, it's honestly, I have this thing I call micro joys, and it's really how I kept going with Mason, but it applies to even just a rough day, like not wanting to go to work, not having enough sleep. And before Mason got sick, trust me, I thought my problems were awful. And now that all seems laughable. Not laughable. It's where I was at the time. And it's actually a huge part of what prepared me, I think, for life. And it's amazing how we grow. And it was a stage of growth. So I shouldn't poo-poo it, but it just, from where I was to where I went, things got very different. Micro joys. I think it's really important to start very small. And one of my micro joys, if I don't want to get out of bed in the morning, I think about what it feels like to wrap my hands around a hot mug of coffee. And that's a tiny moment. And these are gratitudes are what they are. And when you do, I know you talk about gratitude lists, and we do a gratitude list. And I have had a gratitude list going as well for the last year with some family. You learn about these things in gratitude, but instead of like at the end of the day, sort of looking back for things you're grateful for, you sort of look ahead to these little micro moments of joy. And one is wrapping my hands around a hot cup of coffee. Another one is walking outside and closing my eyes and feeling some sun and maybe a little wind on my face and taking in a big breath, feeling my breathing is to me the number one thing to go to. Just one deep breath where you push it all out and you deep belly breath, feeling it in your body and getting out of your head. Those little micro joys. And it's one thing that's important about that, because I can get tricky, and I like the devil on my shoulder can say like, oh, well, here's a micro joy. You'd love a piece of pizza right now. You joy into pizza. It's important, these micro joys, that it's not about consumption of some sort. So it's not sex or food or drugs or alcohol or anything like that. It's not a consumption. Oh, this makes me feel better, I must consume something. It's a sensory experience in the moment that's just very light, like the skin on your hands touching a warm cup of coffee is such a good example. And if I can just get out of bed and go to that and enjoy that moment and not let my head think about it, that's a huge, huge step in just moving through my day. And if I can continue to look for my next micro joys, I read something once that the more things we touch, I like to touch things. The more things we touch, it creates more neural pathway experiences in our brain, which end up helping us be more mindful of our environment and being more mindful of our experiences. And so I find it really interesting to just touch things that I've never, like when I'm going somewhere, if I can put my hand on a rail or across a branch of a tree or anything like that, because it's putting me out of this and into this tactile experience and into my body. And that's life. I mean, that's what, Mason doesn't get to do that anymore, but I watched him at the end, and he wanted those little tactile experiences when he knew he was going to pass. And it was really special. And I realized it's not, none of this, I'm pointing to my head for people who are listening. None of the answers lie in our head. They just are not in our head.
Yeah.
And the more I can do to make something tactile and a tangible experience and not think about it, just sense it. That's my advice for someone who can't keep going. Don't think about, oh, I'll have a positive attitude, or, oh, I'll meditate. Even meditation can feel like an assignment because it's in our head that this is what I should do, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's so interesting when you're talking about the tactile and touch and everything with COVID. We were like, I was wearing gloves for a while. I was like, but touching a tree, I mean, that to me is, yeah, definitely.
And it's funny because I was riding home from the airport yesterday, and I was in the back of the car, and I was looking out of the window, and I was thinking about touching things, and I was thinking about the COVID of it all, because like I touch the airplane when I go in the airplane, and I touch, but obviously where I wash my hands a lot.
Yeah,
But that said, I was in the car and I was looking out the window, and I was looking at, like, I was at a stoplight, and I was looking at like a wood sign, and I was like, what would that feel like to touch it? What would that pine straw on the hot cement feel like to touch it? And that sounds like a crazy thing, I know, but I was thinking, I mean, that to me is life. To me, that's life, is being in our bodies and touching and experiencing and breathing and moving through this planet. It's so cool. It's such a cool thing. And it's a way to play. It's a way to play. It's not, if I go in trying to think about what I should be doing or what I could be doing or what's not working or then I am not looking at what things feel like. I am not present in my world, and I am in anxiety, and I am not going to be a happy person. And then of course, going to work, getting through a relationship situation, having a conversation, for God's sakes, parenting, school, all of the things that we put on ourselves to do, that stuff becomes impossible because we've so forgotten what our world is right around in our very little world around us.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
When you're talking about breathing, and I mean, I always say God is in the pause and taking that breath. That's so huge. It's just remembering. That's right. Well,
that's what it is. That's what helps me remember it. And God is in the pause. And I think that's where the more we train ourselves to do those little tangible things. I mean, and I say that I didn't come to that easily, by the way. It became a thing I did in the hospital because I spent a lot of days and nights at the hospital with Mason.
Yeah.
And I had no exercise. I had no good meals. My child was sick. He was a lot of times very angry about it, and I don't blame him. I was angry about it, scared to death, not quite sure what was coming, all the stuff. Very, very easy to go way into your head. And so one of the things I would start to do would just be like, I remember the couch bed. I would sit there and I would just pet the sheet, and I would like smooth the sheet, and I would smooth the sheet, and I would just smooth the sheet, and I would be focusing on smoothing the sheet. And I realized after I did that, I felt a lot better. And so it became little things like that. And so Mason and I would invent little stupid things to do to just pass the time sometimes, but also to get out of our heads. And what they became were little mini meditations. And, that's really what that is. It's being mindful. And it's such a thrown around word these days that it's become, now it's like a buzzword. I don't think people really even they hear it and they roll their eyes, mindfulness training. But being mindful it's having your, and mindful also is something else. Cause you think, oh, full mind. And yet I'm talking about something it's like your mind is full of the experience that you're having right that moment.
It's being in the moment. That's
being in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. It's being here now in the moment. Some people put that rubber band around their wrist to snap it, to remind themselves, I am here just to be in the moment right now. At this point, I mean, it's only been a few months. How do you think you've changed? I mean, is it just so much that
I have had, and I'm a little in shock at this still, and I'm a little afraid it's going to go away. I have a major level of anxiety that has gone away from me.
That's my next question. I was going to say, what are you doing about your anxiety?
Yeah, in the very end, I actually went on Lexapro. I went on Lexapro right a couple of months before he passed, because what was happening was when he would call my name, when he'd say mama from another room, I would have such a flush of adrenaline. It was similar to when you breastfeed and your milk comes in when your baby cries. Every time he called me, and it wasn't always for crying. Sometimes it was something stupid half the time. You know what I mean? It was like, Mama, I can't reach my game controller. But no matter what, even if I knew it was not an emergency, my physical body would go, and I would flush with this adrenaline it was unbearable. I mean, it was really awful. So I went on Lexapro, and that helped it for the moment. And it just took the edge off. I was able to go to him, and I could jump and run to him too, but I didn't have that terrible electricity that ran through me. I've since come off of it, and I thought it was the Lexapro maybe, but what's interesting is I think I lived through hell. And so now nothing really bothers me that bad. I'm at work. I'm on my second show. I've already produced one show and I'm now on another show. And these shows, the pressure on these shows, it's people in TV think they're curing cancer. And that's what makes me laugh now. You know what I mean? And it's like, so the pressure and the level and the amount of money being spent and amount of bodies trying to make a story happen for television can be very, very anxiety producing. And I'm an executive producer, so I'm in charge of a lot. And so that role has traditionally brought with it for me an absolute huge amount of anxiety. Again, I had that leader thing, so I didn't like people to see it, but it was going on inside of me at all times. So I was always looking for external sources to be able to tamp it down in my life, right? And I've started trying other methods, and then I'll meditate, but it's always sort of been there. And then, I saw my son I have horror show images in my head about what Mason went through. He went through awful, awful stuff. Cancer is an ugly disease. And to see it happen to your baby I don't wish that on anybody ever. He shouldn't have had to go through that. But he did, and we did as a family. And now I go to work and I'm seeing everybody running around and I'm seeing all the anxiety that everybody's in. And I know what's at stake. I know everything that I'm supposed to do. Yes, I have a ton on my plate. Yes, there's a level of responsibility on my plate that feels like undoable for a lot of humans. And yet, I know I have to do it and I don't feel stressed. And I keep looking for the stress. And I'm not talking myself out of it. I'm not saying okay, forget, la, la, la. I'm not saying I got some magic juice that now I know how to say stress go away, boo. It's just not there. It's just not there. And I really do think it's because, and by the way, I'm much better at my job. I'm suddenly I feel like I've leveled up. I'm doing better work because I'm more present. And I really think it's because I saw the worst of the worst. And now I can go through my day and I'm like, look at this, we're making TV. Nothing feels very serious. And I'm just grateful that I get a cool job. I get to tell stories for a living. And those stories can sometimes be really neat. We're telling stories, in these shows about culture right now, about racism, about, gender equality, about the world in something as silly as a competition show on TV. Those topics come up and I get to tell those stories. And to me, that is the biggest cool, awesome gift in the world.
You're so perfect for this. I
get to do that. And before I never felt that. I always felt like it was a burden. And now I'm like, what was I thinking? And I guess it's, what's changed in me is I'm so grateful for everything around me. Mason he showed me how to just risk delight, be delighted at everything happening. And I choose to be that way now because I owe him that. He taught all of us in my community that. People are saying things that he taught them, strangers, people I didn't know. They saw him. There's, the weekend before he passed in the middle of the night on a Thursday morning at 3:30 a.m. And the Saturday before that, it was right before Thanksgiving. It was still a couple weeks before Thanksgiving. And he wanted to decorate for the holidays. So he said, Mama, go to storage and get out all the Hanukkah decorations and all the Christmas decorations. We celebrate all of it in our house. He said, go get the decorations. Mommy, that's Stacy, his other mom. Let's go get Madeline. We're going up to Beverly Drive. And so Stacy and Mason and Madeline, they put Mason in his wheelchair. He couldn't walk at that point. And they walked up to Beverly Drive and Stacy said, everyone he saw, he was waving and saying, happy holidays. Happy holidays. And all of these strangers, he didn't care. He just wanted to spread joy. And he knew he was dying. He knew that there was no more medicine for him. And he wanted to live. And he was just wishing everyone happy holidays. He talked to everybody at the store. They went in and they bought an ornament and he wanted Madeline to have an ornament. And we came home and it was COVID. And so we had our little bubble. My brother was in town and Stacy's brother was in town. Their godmother was here. Mason wanted everybody to sit at the dining room table. We had a family meal. He wanted Brooklyn water bagels. He wanted a bacon, egg, and cheese bagel. And he hadn't eaten in weeks. Like, we couldn't get him to eat soup. And suddenly he wanted that. And he wanted those tactile experiences. And then that Sunday night, we decorated the tree and put up the menorah, and we watched Christmas movies, and he held court. He told stories. He was also a storyteller. He told stories, and we sang and we decorated. And 3 days later, he passed. And so there's no way I'm going to go through this life feeling sorry for myself now. There's just no way. Self-pity is the key to my basement. I don't go there. I can't go there. I will, if I start to go there, of course, I do every now and again. I'm human. I don't stay there for long. I look for a micro joy, and I get out.
What is something you think people misunderstand about you?
Oh, that's a good question. What do people misunderstand about me? Maybe that I'm so strong. I'm told all the time, how can you be so strong? Because I'm sitting here talking about it like now, and I'm talking about it, and I can talk about like the dark stuff, I can tell some stories that are, and I have. And it's not that I'm strong. To me, maybe I'm strong because I went through it, but you're not strong until after the fact. I didn't go in saying like, I feel ready for this. I feel ready for cancer. People would say over and over again, Stacy and I used to laugh about this. People would say, I don't know how you guys do it. I don't know how you do it. You're so strong. You're so strong. And Stacy and I were like, what? And I said, that's like going up to someone who's being stabbed in the stomach, and they're laying on the ground bleeding while they're being repeatedly stabbed, and saying, I don't know how you're doing this. You're so super strong.
There's a choice. There's no choice.
Yeah, it was just happening.
Yeah.
So it just happened. And there was not like, we couldn't just say, let's turn it off for today. I don't feel strong enough to handle cancer today. That just was.
I know.
Yeah. And so, after the fact, I still don't feel strong. Certainly wouldn't welcome it again. I just think that I'm wiser, and having been through it. And, and I've said many a time since then that, if the point of strength what is the point of strength? It's not just to flex for others. The point of strength is to help somebody else, to be strong and lift somebody else up. And so that's what my mission in my life is now, is to turn around and help everyone else that is being repeatedly stabbed in the stomach, and to not go up to them and say, wow, look at you, you're so strong. It's just to be strong for them and quietly help lift them up. So that's the thing. I'm not strong. I'm so not strong. I'm a big weakling, and I'm terrified, but I know how to tell a story. That's it. That's my only, I think that's my biggest skill I got. God was like, okay, you're going to be kind of mediocre at a lot of things, but we'll make you a good storyteller. And for a long time, I lamented that. I was like, why can't I do something that's like going to help people? I want to help people. I want to be bigger, better. Like, I need to I wanted to serve the world. This is fascinating. I wanted to serve the world, the reason I wanted to serve the world was so that I could be recognized for serving the world. I wanted the pat on the back for being someone that was so great that helped everybody. And now I don't give a shit if people even know that I've done something. It doesn't mean anything to me. I now know that my silly reality TV storytelling, or my storytelling at a dinner party, helps people because it just helps us feel a little more connected. That's it. That's literally it. And it's not a lot, but I think it's a little something. And it's funny because when we went to Houston in October with Mason to Baylor University, actually, Baylor College of Medicine, for a clinical trial. It was a Hail Mary pass, and it was too little, too late. And there's a lot of reasons for that. It was COVID, I've learned, and a lot of things, but because a lot of labs shut down during COVID. But we tried to get him in for this one, and it was a beast getting him there for it. And he was the youngest person ever admitted into this first phase FDA trial. And there was little hope going in, but it was, like I said, it was a Hail Mary pass. It didn't end up working clearly. But the doctor on the front lines was this amazing woman named Dr. Rain Rouse. Dr. Rouse is down there in Houston working at Texas Children's Hospital and working with Baylor College of Medicine. And she is at the forefront of cancer research and really working with immunotherapies and all sorts of science it's right there. There's so much good science happening. And I met her and she was so inspiring and so awesome. And I had one of those moments, even in the midst of cancer, like this is like the little, like the ego in us, right? Even in the midst of everything going on, I'm like, wow, I'm not really doing anything with my life. You know what I mean? Here's this incredible person who's curing cancer and doing all this research. And she helps inner city kids learn science and by rapping with them. I mean, she's incredible. Somehow we got to talking. She was in the room with Mason, and Mason said, Mama, you should do a TV show about her. And I was like, I really should. And because she's actually really cool. And she said, what do you mean do a TV show? She didn't know what I did for a living. And Mason said, Mama's a producer. And she goes, what do you produce? And I told her, I produce reality TV. It's, and she went, oh my God. She was the biggest reality TV fan I've ever met. She could list every show, every plot, every she knew all of it. And I was sitting there blinking and she said, I don't think you understand. I wouldn't be able to go through, I wouldn't be able to do what I do if I didn't have reality TV to go and just take all the stress away from me and let me get into something on the screen. And I just, in that moment, I thought she was awed by me and I was awed by her. And we had this really kind of this mutual admiration society of what we each did for a living. And, here she was trying to save my son. And it was so cool. And I think a lot of that took away some of this pretentious, I need to be something in the world thing. It just melted away. It melted away. The most important thing I am in this world is somebody that takes care of my children and my wife and my animals. It. That's it. I'm so happy to be a mom to my kids, and I'm still a mom to Mason. I still am. That's it. That's all I got to do. And if telling stories happens to be my talent, then awesome. And I get to make a paycheck at that on top of it. Sweet.
You're also an amazing friend to a lot of us. So yeah, you're a lot more than that. And you've got a big community, a big family. You've got a lot more than that. Do you have a message of hope you want to give?
A message of hope I want to give. No matter what, the sun comes up the next day. The worst can happen. The worst can happen. Like the worst. And you can think that it's all over. And no matter what, you'll be okay. The sun will come up and you will keep walking and breathing and moving through this life. And even with Mason, the thing I told him as he was passing, a couple days before he passed, when he was still verbal, I said, honey, if we look around at nature, God is in nature to me. You see cycles, there's seasons, there's growth, and there's death, and there's decay, and there's crumbling, and there's blooming, and there's blossoming. And it's been happening for billions and billions of years. And it happens not just on this planet, but out in the universe. There are cycles of life and death, and everything moves in a cycle. And no matter what, even when you pass, Mason, is what I said to him, you are moving into the next phase of your cycle. And that's going to be beautiful because you've been in kind of a crappy one lately. And the wheel turns. The wheel turns. And when we're in a really bad spot, if we just hold on and go outside and breathe that air and feel that sun on our face and feel a little bit of oxygen in our lungs and remind ourselves that we are no different than every other particle, animal, wisp of an idea in this universe. We're in a cycle. And so it will change. If you're in a bad moment, hold on.
Yeah, I've seen you through some incredible periods. And, I've seen you through. That's the whole thing. The only way through is through. I've interviewed enough people and chatted with enough people on 52 Weeks of Hope that if there's one thing I've learned again and again, the only way through is through.
That's it.
Yeah. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't ask? And by the way, for anybody who doesn't know, all of JJ's links will be on the website, and her resilience campaign and her Project Runway show, all of that will be on the website with the show notes. So that will all be accessible. So don't worry about that. But is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask?
I'll just say, I don't know that you should have asked me, but I'll just say one of the things we're doing is we have a team called Team Mason. We raise money for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I'm an advocate with Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and I work with the advocacy group to actually talk to Congress and senators about funding for research so that we can help future kids like Mason. There's a pediatric initiative as well with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and I'm on a family council for that as well.
Because JJ can't say no to anything.
I can't say no. I can't. I pour myself. Like I said, I'm a force. I'm a big force of energy. So, if you ever want to come out and just go on a bike ride or a hike or something like that, we actually have them going year round. Right now, this month, we're doing the Resilience Challenge. The month of June, we're raising money. We've raised so far over $22,000. It's still at the beginning of the month. We're the number 2 team in the nation under the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society Resilience Challenge. I know, it's pretty incredible. I want to be number 1 now.
Of course. Of course. Yeah.
What I was going to say is, even if it's not in the month of June, because Team Mason will be going through the year. And so what we do is we're going to continue to put stuff. I need to get a specific website for this is what I need to do.
So we'll have a link. We'll have a link for everything of JJ's on the website. So
great. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being a guest today on 52 Weeks of Hope.
Thank you so much, Laura. I loved being here. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode and take with you JJ's messages of encouragement, love, and openness. Such great messages to take into your week ahead. It's a good reminder also to do and be what's really important to you. Let's all live what we really want to live, and not for someone else, but for ourselves. Join us in the Hope Club on Clubhouse in our Gratitude and Manifestation Room on Thursdays. If you're not sure what that is, come in and we'll explain that to you, where we talk about what it is that we're manifesting for the weekend. We share our gratitudes and raise a vibration. If you're not sure what those are, but you have this nagging feeling that you aren't doing what you're called here to do, head over to the website at 52weeksofhope.com and grab the free ebook of how to live your best self now, and take a look. There's simple exercises in there to help you get to your own truth. Be sure to tune in next week for a special guest that I'm super excited about. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to tell 2 of your friends about the podcast, as well as leave us a positive review. I'm Lauren Abrams. Thanks for listening.